Welcome to Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and today I'm delighted to be joined once again by Lawrence Connolly, where we'll be looking ahead. I was going to say looking forward, looking ahead to Thursday night, Lawrence, and also this weekend's game against Aberdeen. Now, you joined me at the weekend for the Celtic Rangers game. Very, very disappointing.
Celtic Safeco game. Rangers don't exist.
Whoever it was we played beat us, and I would say beat us well. And this is the big issue going into Thursday night's game. We spoke yesterday to a couple of new faces on a Celtic State of Mind, where we tried to break down what was going wrong with Celtic this season, not just on Saturday. Saturday was the result of several weeks of disappointing performances. We tried to look at how many good performances we had in that period. We took on board some of the challenges that Celtic have had, and certainly did have on Saturday going into the game. But what we have to do at a club like Celtic is we need to prepare for the next game very quickly, and that's what we're doing on Thursday. I'm going to ask you some questions about Lenny, because I don't think I had a chance to ask you after the game on Saturday. Such was the disappointment. However, I will be asking you where we go with Neil Lennon, and if we do it with Neil Lennon, I'm going to be asking you all these questions. But we'll be looking ahead to Thursday night as well. Massive challenge at Celtic Park. Hugely disappointed that we can't be there, Lawrence. Because, you know, even with the disappointment of Saturday, you want to be there. You want to be able to somehow influence the game. We spoke to Jim Orr last week. He thinks he can influence a game by being there. I believe him. We can't be there. We're going to have to be watching it remotely. What's your thoughts? How does Neil Lennon get the group back together? Do you think there needs to be a meeting with the staff, with the group of players, with the coaching staff, so that we can, you know, say, right, we start again? This is the lowest point. We start again and we go into the game on Thursday. How do you pick that team up?
You're not the only one that's disappointed we're not going to be there on Thursday. Big Zlatan is as well, so that was one of his dreams.
That's right.
Playing in front of the crowd, so he's a bit disappointed that I'm sure he will be. Crowd.
Yep.
But you used the phrase "get the group together." Is it a case of maybe we should bring the gang back together? Certainly, the coaching staff Neil had around them first time round.
Mentality.
Well, his gang the first time round, his coaching gang seemed to produce a more fluid team. Yeah? Than we've seen so far this season.
Well, I think it was his, the point you make there, it was his coaching team.
Yep.
I did say yesterday, when I'm looking at that, and it's difficult because obviously with the distancing and all the rest of it, that plays a part, Lawrence, but there's a team, a coaching team I'm talking about, that obviously wasn't assembled by Neil Lennon. And I'm not taking any blame away for Lenny from yesterday. I don't think Celtic are playing well enough with the players we've got, with the personnel that we've got. There's certain players playing nowhere near their capabilities. It comes down to obviously the individual, but the manager needs to manage that situation. So there's so many players in Celtic squad, not just on Saturday but this season, who are not reaching the heights that they need to be reaching in this season of all season. So Edouard would be one of them.
Yep.
And Cham would be another. I think Brown has come in for a fair bit of criticism, and I think on Saturday his performance was below par. There was a suggestion yesterday that McGregor needs to be utilised differently. So there's all these issues. We're going into a game against Rangers. I'm not going to say it was a threadbare squad, because you look at that bench and there was plenty of options on the bench, yet we've not used them at the right times. So what do you do after such a monumental defeat? This early in the season, I'm calling it monumental because we don't know if the season's going to end. It will end, but we might not have played all the games. What do you do? Do you have that meeting? Do you try and ensure that we're all pulling in the same direction?
Let's be honest, Celtic should be having that meeting after every game. I know I work in the results business. I'm sure other people out there work in the results business, and it, you know, certainly every week we will look back and go, right, what have we done well, what have we done badly this week? So I think that's happening after every game with Celtic. They're doing a video analysis, that it should be if they're using any kind of modern coaching methods.
No, I'm sure that will be happening as per normal routine. Lawrence, what do you think? You said there what went well, what didn't go well. What do you think went well on Saturday?
Well, Welsh done all right. You know,
I stood up for him. I did stand up for his performance. I did think I was shocked that he was in the starting lineup, but that wasn't any disrespect to Stephen Welsh. I said that I thought he played really well, and people scoffed at that. I can remember 3 occasions specifically where he's intercepted dangerous balls into the box. So he's been the guy that took control of that on 3 occasions. Three
interceptions. Comes and wins his headers early. Mm-hmm. You know, he was commanding in there, which we thought we didn't have a commanding centre half in there. That's why we brought Duffy in. You know, I think he had one mistake in the second half where he pushed up. Him and Frimpong got caught too close to each other, lost the ball, and they got a break down the left. But I thought, all in all, Welsh played well. Diego, you can tell he's a player. You could tell it was also his first time playing with the rest of the team. You know, it was a bit disjointed at times, but you can tell he's a footballer. So, I think any other positives over those two? I think that's about it for positives.
I don't think there were any beyond that. I've spoken about Welsh. I say, yeah, good performance. It'll do him the world of good, actually, I think. Like Salt, again, I think he can do more, but in terms of a first appearance, I thought he did fairly well, although he wasn't getting in behind anybody because he wasn't getting the service. And when we go into Thursday night, I think Laxalt will keep his jersey. He definitely will. I mean, he's playing his parent club. What would you do with Welsh? Because I think it would be pretty damaging perhaps to the kid if you were to pull him right back out the squad. Are we going to have enough defenders to do that, or do you change the shape? Do you play with 2 fullbacks?
It's if we change the shape, and I was Taylor, I'd be shocked if I didn't take the left back spot.
So you play with a left back?
No, if we change the shape.
Let's say we do. Lawrence, because I can see that happen. The worst case scenario on Thursday night is that we go in and we try to go toe to toe and play this expansive football that, by the way, we've not seen that often. I've heard it spoken about, and we get torn apart. Now, we've seen it far too often in European games over the last 4 or 5 years, where we've been torn apart by quality sides. I
would say Lennon is nothing if not pragmatic. You know, as much as people say, look, he's not very tactically aware. I think we've seen. If we look at his most famous result against Barcelona, the way he set that team out, you know, there was a few surprising conclusions, especially up front. But, you know, we get battered that game, but we came away with a win. You know, he's more willing to compromise his philosophy to get a result.
What is his philosophy?
He's more about getting a ball, I think, forward quickly, getting shots off quickly. Brendan was more ponderous, wasn't he? Retain the ball, recycle possession, less risk. I think Lennon pushes more for risk, which is why I think it starts Christie more. Christie's a player willing to take the risk.
He is.
Take the risky patch, take the shot.
He was missed, Lawrence. But see what you've said there, this is the thing, right? Because I think if you were to ask Celtic supporters at the beginning of the season, what is his philosophy, what is his style of play? And it was all about getting away from that ponderous language style that we've seen under Rodgers, which had become, you know, a feature of Celtic's play. However, I think that is now Lennon's style of play. When you look at the last, you know, the back three on Saturday, having more of the ball than anybody else on the park, and a lot of it was just sideway passes, back and forth. Yeah, so, the young guys getting loads of the ball, but we're not penetrating it. There was no tempo whatsoever.
If you look to play 3 at the back, you're looking, so one of your centre halves then becomes a spare man and you're looking for him to push forward if there's no passes on. Duffy's not that type of player. I don't think he's ever going to push forward.
Ayer would be your boy, wouldn't he?
So Ayer would do it, but ideally if you're playing a back 3, you want 3 that can do it. I don't know if Welsh can do it. I've only seen 90 minutes or what. I know he turned out for us before, but I've seen less than 180 minutes of Welsh. So I don't know if he's a boy that could do it. And certainly we wouldn't have been looking for him to do it in his first game or arguably against AC Milan if he plays. I think Julian can do it. You know, I think he's a decent passer of the ball and he can push forward. don't think Duffy's going to do it in a back three. He's not ever going to be the spare man, is he, that can push forward. You know, if I'm the opposition and Duffy's got the ball, I'm quite happy, because I don't think his long passing is accurate enough, and I don't think he's going to push out with it often. So you can kind of relax and leave Duffy. You don't need to pressure him as much. Whereas if Ayer's on it, you know there's a bit of danger. You know that he can push forward. I think Julian can as well. Not as good effect as Ayer can, but at least both of them can be the spare man when you're playing a back three. I think with Duffy it's maybe not as suited to his game. So often the opposition will leave the ball with Duffy. Who's he going to find with a pass? One of the other centre halves then will pressure them, or will cover them before he goes to play the pass. I think against AC, I think Lennon will stick with 5 at the back, but I think he might actually give Taylor a shout, because I think he's going to know we're going to be under the cosh more.
So who's on the right for you then?
Oof.
Do you still play Frimpong as a wing back? We know about his defensive deficiencies.
So if Julian's fit, how far away do you think Julian is?
Well, I was surprised, again, not knowing specifically what the situation is, because he was on the bench for 2 games running, and then he's out the squad. So obviously the back injury has flared up, or it's not improved sufficiently for him to be in the
so what's our options then
first 20.
If it's not Julian, Beaton or El Hamid?
Well, I don't think any of them are going to feature on Thursday night.
Because if they were fit, I would put...
Personnel-wise,
Beaton,
we've got Christie coming back.
So I'd put 3 centre-halves being Welsh, Beaton and Duffy. Throw Ayer over to the right back. Taylor at left back. I think that would give you a really solid... left wing back, whatever way you want to put it. I think we're going to need to be a lot more solid defensively.
Well, I think that's why we're going to change the shape. I really do. So that we can, you know, the way that we were cut open, you know, people were talking about the fact that we had one up front, and people say, well, we should play 2, and, you know, that's not the answer to the problems. No, it's not. There's numerous issues in there. But in only playing with the one striker up there, Goldson had all the time in the world. He was strolling about that park like he owned it. He was a man of the match. He scores 2 goals. So I think on the one hand, we need to obviously look at the defensive situation there, Lawrence, because the worst case scenario on Thursday night, on the back of what happened on Saturday, is we go out there and we try and go toe-to-toe and play this fast, high-tempo, expansive football, because actually we've not done that.
I think
that often this season.
Lenny's he'll be more pragmatic in this, and he'll be saying sometimes it will be just launch the ball. I think Lenny will be, you know, you get shots off early, launch the ball, get the ball forward early. It won't be commit men forward. He'll know that, you know, Zlatan would be a bit of freedom. Big part. I mean, Celtic Park's a big playing surface. We can't afford to leave room at the back, because we know we'll be cut open. If you look at, I'll touch on again, his most famous result against Barcelona, you know, he shut that part down as much as he could, you know, and it was balls forwards to chase. You know, what got one of his goals by chasing it? Arguably, Mascherano could have been sent off. Another long ball out, you know, and what was away. So I think we're going to see that it's going to be a bit of launching balls, and I think it will be 2 forwards. Who the 2 are? I think we know Griff and Ayeti aren't fit, yeah? How close they are, I don't know. But I would have started on Saturday, and Kevin Tate and yourself saw my team beforehand. I would have started with the unfit players first and get what you can out of them, rather than wait until later, bring them on, because what happens if their injury flares up? Where do you go then? We know they're not fit. You know, get what you can out of them. So I would start with Ayeti and Griff, and then you know, Klimala is quick. Is he as quick as Tony Watt? Who knows? But
you're looking back. You're going back 8 years to a time where I look at that squad that Lenny assembled back then, and I compare it to the squad that he has at his disposal now. And I keep saying this: the squad of players that Neil Lennon has at his disposal is quality. It's a quality squad of players. Yep. My concern is that he's not getting a tune out of them. This is the issue. Now, the lineup on Thursday night, I know that we were disappointed against Ferencváros. What happened against Motherwell the following week is he played the same lineup. So the criticism was, you're not playing with a striker, Lenny, but he picked the exact same team. He only changed it at half time, and it was only then that we started to click into gear.
I think that if Lenny's got a fault, well, we've all got faults, haven't we? So let's assume when he has a fault, at least one, I would say it is loyalty. He's too loyal to players. He gives them, and it's maybe why he makes his subs late in the game. I think at half time he's saying, look, playing well, and rather than hooking them, he tries to give them the opportunity to redeem themselves. And I think that's why he makes late subs. I think he's too loyal to players, which works for him sometimes. I mean, a lot of other managers would have had Griff out the door. It's worked for Lennon keeping him. Showing that loyalty, showing that understanding. Some managers don't show it. I think Lennon shows it, and at times I think he shows it too much. He is too loyal to certain players.
We'll have a look at a lot of the comments that are coming through, because the broadcasts, obviously, since Saturday, actually on Friday night, have been very popular, because Celtic fans are unhappy at the moment, and you can understand why. The performances this season have not been good enough on a consistent basis, and I know that we haven't dropped many points, but we've dropped enough to be sitting 4 points behind Rangers in second place at the moment. So if we look at Julien's out for Thursday night, so Julien's not going to be in the starting lineup and not on the bench. So I mean, that seems to be a reoccurring back injury, that it seemed as though he had gained some kind of form of fitness, because he was on the bench a couple of times, Lawrence, and we did speak about that against Sarajevo. If we get an injury in the first 5 minutes, we're going to have to call on Julian, so he needs to be fit. We got the injury, and we actually brought on El Hamid, so he's not going to feature on Thursday night. So the big question for me, as well as the forwards, is how do we actually set up at the back? Because if he starts with the 3 centre halves, it's going to be the same 3 that started on Saturday. Would you be happy with that going into the game against AC Milan?
I think it gives you a problem at right wing back then, because I suppose Saturday was maybe Frimpong's best defensive performance. The only problem is he gave us nothing going forward, which is why he's generally in the team. He's generally exciting to watch, and generally will beat a man. Statistically, when you look at his stats, they're not as impressive in Taylor in terms of assists. So the same three centre backs. Welsh didn't put a foot wrong. First goal, Ayer passes Goldson on to Duffy. Duffy acknowledges it, then loses him, then steps back early and plays him onside. But I think Duffy's come out on Instagram or social media or whatever, and he said that, I think he feels he's got a point to prove.
I think he does as well.
Yeah, and I think everybody does after that mistake.
We were screaming for Shane Duffy to sign. He was the answer to all our defensive woes. He's come in, he's scored a couple of early goals. I know that, that he's played a lot of football in a short space of time compared to hardly any football for several months, and that included the international break where he's played 3 games in a week. And but when challenged there on Saturday, I actually thought he had a poor game.
That goals changed games. Certainly was at fault for the first goal, and he's admitted that himself. You'd be looking for more. It's to drop back and break the line. He's the guy that should be shouting and telling people to hold the line. And he's the most experienced defender we've got. He's a professional footballer and international captain. Not to know how to hold your line, in any game, never mind that game, it's a criminal mistake.
But all I would expect from Duffy, you've already said he's not the ball playing centre half, of the likes say Ayer, and even Julian to a point, because Julian's distribution for the largest part is excellent.
Yep.
Some of the balls he played just day one of the season against Hamilton when he sets up the opener. But all I would be expecting from Duffy is to organise that side. He's your captain at the back. Organise your defence. Make sure that everything that comes in is won in the air, probably by himself, and then you play it either to your Ayer or to your right to Frimpong or to your left to Laxalt. You play it to the ball players, because so far too often has Duffy put his foot in the ball, looked up and just pinged the ball right out the park. He's getting a lot of the ball, but the distribution's not there. He's not a ball player. He's there for other reasons.
If I'm the opposition manager, I'm going to give Duffy the ball. Let him have it. Who's he going to pick out? We know he doesn't have that in his locker consistently. He'd pick out more players than I ever would, or you ever would, because I've seen you play, but he's not going to pick out more than Ayer or Julian. If Duffy can marshal that defence, that's what you want, isn't it? And see if we switch to a 4, how's this for a 4? Play Taylor, Duffy, Welsh, Ayer.
Ayer at right back.
Yep.
Well,
I think he's a lot more solid than Frimpong's going to be. We're going to need to be solid. Then you can have Frimpong in front of him. You can have Diego in front of Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
We know who the centre mids are. It's Brown and McGregor. Then who's your two up front? Who's fit? What's your options? Christie and Griff?
Well, Christie will be fit.
Christie
will definitely be fit. Christie's the first name on my team sheet.
Well, Christie and Griff then. If you're going 4-4-2, that's what I'd go with.
You're playing me one forward.
Well,
you're playing me Christie.
Well, Christie can play as a forward. We've seen it before. It's worked before, hasn't it? There's times it's not worked, but playing alongside Griff or just behind Griff, yep, I would go with that 4-4-2.
The problem I've got with playing Christie up front is Christie, yes, he can do it, but he's far more effective as that creative player behind the striker. He's the one that makes things happen for Celtic.
Well, I think we know we're going to be pinned back a fair bit against AC Milan. So you'd expect there to be a plan to change at some point. I think it's going to be a quick ball up to him, try and hit Christie and get him to feed Griffiths. I don't think we're going to be playing it along the back four, play it into the midfield and build like that. I don't think we're going to be given the time to do that against AC Milan. And I think with Lenny's pragmatism, it will be try and get the ball up to Christie, tell Griff to play in the shoulder of the guy and see what they can create between them. Solid at the back. You get Frimpong on the right, Diego on the left. If Christie gets the ball early, those two boys are quick. He can be laying it down the wing, either wing. He won a aim. Griff, he's quick in the middle. He's good in the air. Who knows, mate?
I'm going to ask you some questions about Lenny and the wider issues that have been at the forefront of a lot of Celtic supporters' minds since Saturday and before then, because the performances, as I say, have not been there. There seems to be a disconnect between the players and Neil Lennon at this moment in time. Do you think that Lenny is capable of turning this around? And by turning it around, what I mean is not scraping past St Mirren 2-1 away or Dundee United 1-0 away and scraping results together because you've got the players who are capable. What I mean is that disconnect, Lawrence, is a concern. You don't know why it's there. You don't know why certain players were said to be pushing and agitating for moves. That was Lenny's words after the Ferencváros game. You don't know why there's people leaking teams from within the club. So there is a disconnect there. That's the biggest concern for me. You go through a season, very, very rarely would you go through a season or have a bad result or a bad spell of results and drop a few points. That's to be expected. The concern for me is that if it's a deeper issue that Celtic have at the moment.
So can Lenny turn it around?
Yeah.
I think it should be, can Lenny turn it around again? Because we know he's turned it around in the past from similar points. You're not going to win every game 3-0. You've touched on it. You will have bad performances. So I do believe that Lennon can turn it around. There's definitely deeper issues. I mean, first time round he got to pick his own coaching staff. This time round he doesn't get to pick his own coaching staff. Don't know who's picking his coaching staff for him, but certainly there's coaches out there that were with Lenny in his first spell at the club that aren't allowed back at the club. I don't know what makes a good coaching team other than trophies in the cabinet, that's basically how we judge it, isn't it? Or maybe at Celtic it's trophies in the cabinet and player sales. I think that's how Celtic judge it.
That would be part of the bigger plan, certainly. But
so first time round he certainly delivered that with the coaching staff that he picked. Yeah,
that was his coaching team, certainly.
Yeah. They seem to be more together as a club and a team. We didn't seem to have these kind of issues we're getting just now. That disconnect didn't appear to be there. Is that part of it? The players know that he can't pick. The manager's not trusted to pick his own coaching staff. What does that say to a player if the manager's not trusted to pick his own coaching staff?
Well, it comes down to the relationship, I guess, between the squad and the manager. Yes, but it happens in football, especially in modern football, whereby certainly under the circumstances where Lenny got that job, and the coaching staff were decimated at that time due to Brendan Rodgers leaving and taking most of them with him. Some of them stayed, and brilliant loyalty from the likes of Stevie Woods and John Kennedy. But at that time it was about consolidation, so everybody just pulls together, no problem. The one change that obviously you would have expected Lennon to have a say in, because he's taken the job based on everything you've said. He's accepted the parameters of, who can I pick, and that would also go into the transfer side of things, because we know there were players that came to Celtic under Rodgers' tenure that he knew nothing about.
Shred being one
for
of them.
example,
Yep.
yeah, that was mentioned yesterday. It's a good point. So anyway, when Damien Duff leaves to go to the Republic of Ireland, it's at that point that you would expect Neil Lennon to have a say in who comes in, because he's playing, he's working with them on a day-to-day basis. They're working on players, they're working on shape, they're working on tactics together. So yeah, you would expect at that stage. Whether or not that was the case with Gavin Strachan, I can't be sure, because I don't have that information. I would be hugely surprised at the size of a club of Celtic that the manager doesn't have a say in it. If he doesn't have a say in it, then there might be a disconnect. Or it might work absolutely brilliantly, depending on the personnel that you're working with.
The clubs that normally do it have a director of football. Yeah? We don't have a director of football.
Are you sure?
So, well, I don't know anyone with the title of Celtic Director of Football. There's a lot of speculation there may be someone acting as a director of football, which is different from having a director of football. I think we all know Lenny would love Tomo back, and that's just not happening. Whether or not he had I'm not saying he's got no input, but surely it should be his choice who his coaching staff is. I can see, there's the argument Celtic going, well, we don't want another manager walking out and taking all the staff again and be back at square one. Perhaps maybe that's what Celtic are keen to avoid. I don't know, but it seems that Lenny would certainly want Tomo on and can't get him in.
But then Tomo wasn't at Bolton or Hibs.
Yep.
When we all know the issue between Thompson coming back is some kind of issue between Thompson and Peter Lowell. I mean, that's come from Thompson himself on his social media channels. So if it's an issue with Peter Lowell, Lennon certainly didn't have him down at Bolton or at Hibs.
No, he didn't, but he did get to pick his own staff, didn't he?
Yes.
How many staff did Lenny bring in with him as coach? How many has he brought in here?
You're talking about now,
Celtic,
currently?
yeah.
None of them. Well, I don't know about Gavin Strachan, but Kennedy was already there. Stevie Woods is a goalie coach. He was already there. So, as far as I'm aware, it would only be Gavin Strachan, if that.
First time round, they brought in Parker.
It was his team.
Tomo, Mayalby.
It was his team, yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. How many people did Rodgers bring in?
I think there was a bus.
Martin
was a separate coach.
Many did Martin bring in?
That was his own coaching staff, absolutely.
Gordon Strachan?
He had his own team. It was Pendray. And
so who was the last manager not to bring their own team?
Probably Billy McNeil, second time round.
Do you think we'd be going that far back?
Because Tommy Craig was already there. And
him and Billy knew each other though, didn't they?
Oh yeah, but
there's good trust there.
What you're saying there is right. It is the norm that the manager would bring in his own, but the situation wasn't the norm, was it?
Yeah.
When Lenny comes in. But anyway, with that in mind, that I don't think is ever going to be an option now, because when we're looking at the situation, we're looking at Neil Lennon. So you're not looking at John Kennedy, you're not looking at Gavin Strachan, you're looking at Lenny. He's the manager.
You've got to look at players on the park as well, and you've touched on it, that there will be a meeting, and I'd be surprised if it wasn't Lenny and his senior pros having a chat first. Those senior pros in that team should have influence on other players, so he's got to be getting Duffy, Scott Brown, Cal McGregor into the room, and he's got to have guys that are his guys on the team, hasn't he? The younger guys that maybe aren't performing, I don't know what's been going on with Eddie this season, or players that are wanting away, that there needs to be I think Lenny showed his frustration, and I'm not too sure he should have done it in camera. If they want away, they should just go. Which, if players are only giving you 80% because they don't want to be here, maybe he's got a point. There's other players that are rumoured to want away, like Ayer, who I think gives everything on the park. I don't fault Ayer's effort, but Lenny, it's obviously irking Lenny that he feels that some players want away and aren't giving everything. Well,
let's focus on that for a minute, because we can base this on what's happened rather than speculation. So Neil Lennon came out after the Ferencváros game. He speaks about players who don't want to be at the club, and he speaks about players who have been trying to push moves through for several months. Now, after the Kilmarnock game, right, Julian makes errors that lead to the goal, but Ayer gets dropped. So was he talking about Ayer? Was he talking about the mooted move to AC Milan, the previous agent, not the current agent, who had maybe been agitating for a move? Because if so, you drop that player. He's been, let's be honest, he's been one of our best centre-halves this season.
Yep.
So that old phrase of throwing players under a bus, you're throwing Ayer under a bus there. You've got Eduard, who by all, by going by the reports, there was interest in Edouard during the transfer window just past, where he could have gone back to France. So Lennon's come out and spoken about that as well, saying that is perhaps why Edouard's performances haven't been up to scratch, because of the transfer window. He's got one eye on the transfer window. Listen, does Edouard want to leave?
I think when Lenny's saying that about Eddie, he's taking a bit of pressure off Eddie as well. Maybe his head's been turned up. Maybe Eddie's genuinely had a dip in form. He set some heights of consistency for a player so young.
But why do all these players want to leave would be my concern, because they're still in their early 20s. If you're looking at Ayer and Edouard, just for two, we've heard also Ryan Christie in that bracket. Right. Why do they want to leave this season?
Eddie, did we ever think they were going to see out of their careers with Celtic?
No. But why do they want to leave now?
So we knew at some point that they were going to want to leave. It's always been part of their plans to leave. How much they're agitating to leave, I don't know. I've never seen either in the paper going, "In my Celtic hell," as much as the Scottish mainstream media would love that headline. I'm sure if they wanted
agitate a different way now, though, don't they? I mean, remember Dembele using Twitter to its full effect.
You can agitate in a different way. I mean, Dembele certainly started that, but apparently after a former manager, the current Celtic manager, had mooted a move to China with him. If I go to China, will you come with me? Mm-hmm. If your manager's doing that, what do you expect your players to be doing? Going, my manager's, he's talking about going to China, and I've got to appear to be 100% loyal. I think that's a different situation.
I mentioned this yesterday, Lawrence. This 10 in a row bid that we are in the throes of at the moment, it may well be in jeopardy if this continues. This week here, let's talk about AC Milan, Aberdeen. If we don't get a victory against Aberdeen,
well, it's the two games against Aberdeen, isn't it? Forget AC.
No, you can't forget AC. No, it's the European game.
The two main games against Aberdeen. One's to keep us on track for a fourth treble in a row. Just remember where Celtic are, because I know you supported them. Kind of trebles were a rare thing. So
3 wins in a row was a good thing back then.
Yeah,
but let's not go into the territory of the 90s.
If we win the next 3, we'll all be over them in AC Milan and Aberdeen. But yeah, we've got to beat Aberdeen in the league, haven't we? And we've got to beat them in the Scottish Cup semi.
Well, at the moment, because of the circumstances and where we find ourselves in the league, we've got to win every single game. But going back to the point, you sell the move to a player like Edouard on the point that you come here, we're a platform, you move on. But what we seem to be finding more and more often is that they become impatient, want to leave earlier. So why do players like Edouard at the moment, potentially, because obviously Lenny has mentioned it, Ayer, because Lennon has mentioned it, and Christie, because he's spoken out about it himself, he's been offered a deal, he's taken some time to think about it. Why would they, at this moment in time, want to leave Celtic? Because that is going to create problems. So
there's no Champions League football, which I think they all want to play in. Christie, I think, he wants to go to the EPL, he wants to test himself. Stuart Armstrong, big mate of him, he's seen him go down there do well. I think Christie would probably only be on 5 times his wages if he went down south, so I'm not going to take that out of consideration for anyone, Johnny.
Nobody's leaving before
10 weeks' time.
So this period of what would seem disharmony or disconnect, that's something we need to sort out, and that's when we highlighted
the players
you get them together in a meeting and you say, well, we've got 10 weeks to get this.
Well, the players themselves right. will know that they can't leave until the transfer window opens.
But why go in the huff and not perform?
Well, I wouldn't have said Ayer or Christie went in the huff and not performed. I would say Ayer's.
He looks like a guy that's not 100% tuned in, Lawrence.
So
this is a player that I think is an exceptional talent.
We've been missing him. I don't think he's went in the huff. I think his form's dropped. Is it because he's in the huff? I'm not so sure.
In the huff,
he's going to have ups and downs in his forms.
And I'm not focusing on Eddie, I'm focusing on the manager here.
But you're going to have up and downs on your form, yeah?
Of course, every player does.
So if Eddie has a downturn, are we always going to say it's because he wants to leave, he's had his head turned, or could it just be a genuine downturn in form for him?
No, because Lennon has confirmed that it was due to the speculation and the interest from other clubs. So
Eddie said he's had his head turned a bit. Takes a wee bit of pressure off Eddie, says, but now he's here, he's kind of putting it in the past when Lenny's saying it, isn't it? Had his head turned, transfer window's shut, we'll kick on from here.
Well, let's hope he can, Lawrence, because he's a player that when he's firing on all cylinders, he can be the game changer that we've seen him being so often, as can Ryan Christie. When you're looking at Duffy being pretty shaky on Saturday, the only other established centre-half we have at the moment is Ayer.
Yep.
So you want him to be firing on all cylinders. But the more wider issue that I'm trying to get at here isn't individual players. It's the fact that this is all happening under the tutelage of Lenny. It's under Lenny's watch. He needs to sort it out.
Yeah, Lenny's got a lot on his plate to sort out.
But that comes with the territory.
Can he do it again? Can he turn it around again?
Do you think he can?
Well, he's got a track record. He's turned it around before. So I'm assuming that he'll be able to do it again. He's shown in the past as Celtic manager, he's been able to turn around underperforming teams, yeah?
Underperforming sides? Well, were we underperforming this time in December last year?
Well, in the past, when did he first come in as Celtic manager? 10 over for Mowbray?
He did.
Did he get a tune out of the team?
Well, he did, but I mean, he didn't win anything obviously in the first season. You go into the second season, he failed to win the league that season as well. So yes, he did, and I know what he's done in the past, but in the here and now, Lawrence, I do have more concerns than that. I've got concerns that you're looking at a team that should be going for 10 in a row, but were slow paced. They had no invention, no creativity on Saturday.
We know muscle. We know Lenny wanted wingers and we didn't get them for whatever reason. But we know that Lenny was after wingers. We didn't bring any in. Yeah? But
we've got to deal with the personnel that he has at his disposal.
We've got to deal with what he's got.
He's got good enough players to put a team together that performs better than they did on Saturday. So we're 4 points behind, with a game in hand. So if we win the game in hand, it's down to a point. So I'd say we're still in contention for 10 in a row. I'm not writing 10 in a row off. But another bad result against Aberdeen on Sunday. And there's serious issues.
Lenny's under a lot of pressure. Can he turn that around again? I'd say that Lenny can turn that around again. I think he's got the capability.
This is where my doubt sets in, because I'm looking, and many, many times this happened under the previous regime, where we got a goal down, and I'm not concerned, because I know Celtic will turn it round. I had that confidence, not only in the people on the pitch, but I had that confidence in the manager, in the coach. And one of the examples I used yesterday was at Ibrox when Simunovic gets sent off. You're thinking to yourself, in many, many occasions, oh no, they're going to have the upper hand here. You look at the reaction of Rodgers on that sideline. He was thinking 2 and 3 stages ahead of anybody else. He was putting his plans in place to ensure that we won that game. That ability to adapt, not after the game, not, here's the post-mortem, Lawrence, we need to sort this out. During the game to ensure we don't get beat. When we go a goal down in the first 10 minutes and we lose a goal in the first 10 minutes of the second half, same basic errors. We're not playing a great side, but we're playing a side that could potentially win the league.
But we're playing it against a better safe goal side than Rodgers played against, yeah? They've improved as a side.
They have improved, but they improved under Gerrard whilst Rodgers was there, because when he took the eye off the ball, you also seen a situation at Ibrox when we got beat 1-0 the last time beaten was the manager, the referee rather, where we had already, at that point, we had taken our foot off their neck. This is the issue. And you're seeing Rangers coming to Celtic Park and dominating us. They dominated us on Saturday. The change had to be made, and it wasn't. It wasn't made. I mean, the substitutions were all made whilst we were 2-0 down.
Yeah, I think Lenny hangs on too long to make his subs. We've got, twice before we went behind in games this season, and come back and won them in the league.
Yeah, but you're looking at the game against St Mirren.
Yep.
2-1 at Paisley. It was far from convincing. The guy that turned it around for us is injured for a medium term, and he's an influential player. He would have been playing on Saturday, and James Forrest would have been playing on Saturday.
Oh, he's one of your first names in the team sheet if he's fit, isn't he?
He is for me. I know that a lot of fans give him flack, but he certainly is for me. And he is a senior pro at Celtic Park. So it's players like Forrest, even though he's maybe not playing, who has an influence. And
who's your top 5 goal threats at Celtic Park? Eddie,
Forrest, Griffiths, Christie, Forrest.
So Forrest was injured. Yeah, Christie was out because of Corona, although Tierney could play down south. We knew Eddie was out because of injury, and we knew Ayeti and Griff were coming back for injury. So you had issues with all five. Three of them weren't available, and two of them coming back for injury, starting on the bench. So,
but why start them on the bench though? If your main goal threat.
It's the football argument, isn't it? Do you start somebody coming back for injury on the bench and try and get 15 minutes at the end out of them, or do you put them on at the beginning, knowing they won't last the full game? For me, I've been favourite putting them on at the beginning and getting everything you can out of them. Because who's to say that if you bring them on as a sub, they don't break down again? You know, we don't know how far away from fitness they are, but we know they weren't fit enough to start. But for me, I would say, look, especially somebody like Griff, I'd be like, look, Griff, give us what you can that first half. And if you can still go, you know, you'll start second half. If you can't, then you've got Paddy to bring on. But I would always rather start with the two on than bring them off the bench. Because Klimala and Mo Elanusi, you know, he's went for a lot of money in his career. What have we seen at Celtic of him? 10 minutes against Ross County this season. When he first came in, we played him left wing. He had a few good games. Is he looking like
he played a £10 million player? He played well until he was injured, and then he was rushed back in the League Cup final. Again, bad management.
Is he looking like a £10 million player?
At this moment in time, no.
When did he last look like a £10 million player?
Last season. I was delighted when we brought him back in for another season. I've got to say, I think he's got some real quality. Why are all these players off form? It normally happens to one or two players at a time. There's a number of players at the moment, Lawrence, who are all off form. And that, for me, points at a deeper issue. Because if they're not performing 5- and 6-fold, and they're your top players, your Edwards, Elyounoussi, who's, as you say, he's moved for £16 million in the past. He's shown us the quality that he has last season, primarily, but in flashes this season.
But you've got to remember, the reason we got him, because he wasn't in form at Southampton, was he?
No, he had a bad spell at Southampton. So
it's not just at Celtic he's having a bad spell. He moved for big money, then he's had a bad spell. When was the last time he had a consistently good season?
Well, it would have been at Bal, which earned him a £16 million move. But that's the only reason we've got players like him and Ayeti. If Ayeti was scoring goals for West Ham, we wouldn't get near him.
It's a
manager's job as well, though, to get a tune out of these guys.
They're not coming to Celtic then becoming underperforming. There's certain players we're getting because they're underperforming, and then it's the manager's job to get a tune. Mm-hmm. So, for it, Ayeti wasn't performing at West Ham. Certainly performed at Celtic. So are we going to give Lenny credit for that? Because he was certainly underperforming at West Ham for the little time he played.
I've given Lenny loads of credit.
No, but I'm saying, so we'll give Lenny credit for that.
For Ayeti. Yeah. Especially if it was his player that he identified as coming
and brings in. So we know the manager can do it. Why are so many people underperforming? But we are a club that's brought underperforming players to us, hoping that we can turn them around. You know, Duffy wasn't brought here because he was performing well for Brighton.
He wasn't playing.
Aye.
Again, you know, if you're going to buy a player from the English League, he's either going to be a young project, i.e. Frimpong, or he's going to be a player who's not going to game. You know, we're not going to buy a player who's in the top 11. 100%. I've asked you, is Lenny capable of turning it around? Do you believe he is?
Yep. He's done it in the past.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, Lenny's shown he's done it in the past.
I'm going to ask you now, and this is again very much cliched in football terms, but it's getting round to what I've been talking about. When there's a number of players, let's say 5 or 6, who aren't performing for the manager, and therefore for the team, has he lost a group of players? Has he lost the dressing room? There's a cliche.
Well, we know that's happened before at Celtic Park under Ronnie.
And Tony Mowbray.
And under Tony, yep. Mm-hmm. But under Ronnie in particular, the senior pros just...
down tools.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And there's only one left in it, at the club that done that, yeah. The rest were moved on. And
so it does happen. Everybody knows that happens in football.
But as well as going, well, that's some of the manager's fault. Some of the players would need to look at themselves if they're down in teams on the manager, down in tools on a manager.
Some of them have done it before.
Actually, the one that's done it before, I don't think he's down in tools in this manager.
No, neither do I, but it happens in modern football.
Yeah,
it's not just a cliche, he's lost the dressing room. What does that mean? Well, what it means is there's a group of players who don't play for you. Yeah, they know they're not going to get sacked.
Yeah.
You know, they know they're not going to get
they're
sacked.
They're safe. safe as houses. They know they're still getting their wages.
Now, what I don't want this, we've heard it time and time again, normally leading up to a big game, where, there's an issue in the camp. We've heard it from the mainstream media. We're not saying that. What we're saying is, there's a group of players not performing. Yeah,
and Lennon needs to get the bottom of it and start, looking to get performances out of it. Could it be that, I don't think we're helped that we brought players in late. When did we make our signings? At the beginning of the transfer window? Towards the end? Well, that doesn't help us that you need some game time together. Strachan is the new coach, whether he's Lennon's man or not. He needs some time working with the players. When you've got 3 games a week, I don't know how much he can get done on the training pitch with him to work systems. I think Goldson's interview goes, we've been working these systems for 3 years. I don't think Celtic have got players that can say, been working in these patterns of play or systems for 3 years.
I don't think Celtic know what the pattern of play or the system is. This is a problem. The other issue is, as well, and I've taken a lot of the questions and we'll be returning to them in a second, Lawrence. Over the last few days and on social media, you get a good understanding of what the feeling is over a cross-section of Celtic supporters. And a lot of them have no confidence in the manager at the moment. Do you think he's lost the fan base? Do you think he's lost a section of the support?
I think that he's definitely lost a section of the support. Mm-hmm. Whether rightly or wrongly, there seems to be a section of support. If Celtic lose a game, it's time to change the manager. I think we're going through an unprecedented period of success. His win rate since he came back second time round is, I think it's the best of any Celtic manager, is it not?
It was sitting at 80% before
Saturday's above 80%, wasn't it? Was it 83?
80 point something, aye.
So, it's an unprecedented level of success we're having as a club. It's 4 trebles we're going for, yeah?
5, potentially.
Potentially 5, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I think there's a section of the support that, feel entitled that they're going to win every game 3 or 4-0, and if we don't, the manager's terrible. It's like Mike Tyson's comment on social media the other day. People are more willing to kind of be critical, aren't they? Because there's no danger to them. They're more willing to disrespect people. I think Neil Lennon's achieved a lot in the game for Celtic.
And I think he deserves. But there's an issue now. There's an issue just
without doubt. But I think he does deserve the back, and I think he's earned the back in the Celtic support. And I don't think rumours going out there, maybe guys do have inside sources that saying, he's lost the dressing room, Lenny doesn't care, he's trying to work his ticket. I don't think any of them are helping Celtic. That's just my opinion on it.
But if you are the manager of Celtic Football Club, we get behind you. You're also going to be criticised.
Yep.
If you make a series of bad decisions, or your team, despite you saying it's 1 defeat, it's a number of performances that we're focusing on rather than just 1 defeat. And it was the nature of that defeat on Saturday. It was gutless.
Yeah.
That was a gutless performance by Celtic on Saturday. Now, Rangers, whether or not they're capable of continuing that throughout a season, that's up for debate, and that's what we'll see.
What was the question after the New Year's game last season?
Well, they lost the momentum. Celtic turned it around. But
by the same manager.
By the same manager.
And it was much the same conversation as we're having just now, wasn't it?
Well,
there'd been poor performances by Celtic.
Did we think there was a deeper issue, though?
Well, there was poor performances by Celtic. I remember at the time people calling for Lenny to go. That's ridiculous, losing to them.
Lawrence, and there's plenty of Celtic fans wanted Lenny to go after the Hearts Cup final when he got the job. I mean, That's always going to happen, right? It's going to happen at a club like Celtic. The last time I can remember any kind of harmony, like 100% harmony, was in the Invincible season when Rodgers came in a blaze of glory and we were pumping Rangers 5-1 and we were winning everything, right? So when we were winning everything in our path, which we still are, and I'll take your point, but I'm talking about the harmony, and I'm talking about the fact that, do we pull the rug from under our own feet? And if so, that really is something that's, it's negligible.
I think the pressure's greater than Lenny, probably, than it's been in any Celtic manager. Because it is 10 in a row. We're going for something that's unprecedented. Trebles 4 and 5 in a row and 10 in a row. So I think everybody's feeling the pressure. And that'll be players included. Perhaps the players are missing the fans backing as well on the ground. Players do say, that the crowd makes them go that bit extra. You've got Zlatan disappointed the fans aren't going to be there. He wanted to experience that atmosphere.
Let me just go back to Zlatan, actually. He played there for Ajax, am I right? 20 minutes for Ajax. I can't remember him coming back.
Did he play for Ajax
during his time at Barca, PSG?
That was under Martin, yeah. When we beat them over in Amsterdam.
Yeah, he was part of an Ajax team. But, it would have been great. I would have loved to have seen him. Zlatan, obviously a huge icon of the world game, playing at Celtic Park. Fantastic. But we're in a situation at the moment, we'll be watching that live on the TV, and we will be covering the game, obviously, as we always do with our Celtic State of Mind. I hope, and like all Celtic fans, that we're able to turn this round. I mean, we would like a performance. I think that was what Tony was saying yesterday. We would like a performance. A result would be tremendous as well, and we've done it in big games against Italian opposition last season. Can we do it again? I just think we're in a different place at the moment.
Was Lenny the first manager to win away in Italy?
First Celtic last manager? Season, though.
No, I'm just asking, was he?
Yeah, but it was last season.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Where
it was last season.
Now.
Everything prior to today was in the past, yeah.
No, absolutely, but we can't just continually say it's okay, in Lenny we trust, keep the faith. This is a big topic that we spoke about yesterday. There's an issue. There's an issue at this moment in time. It's seeped into the performances all season.
I think Lenny's had issues before and he's turned it around before.
Well,
other managers have had issues before and not turned them round. Other managers have also had issues and turned them round. But there's Mowbray had issues, couldn't turn it round. Daly had issues, couldn't turn it round. So some managers can turn issues round, and Lenny's shown that in the past he's had issues and been able to turn it round.
Great point. I'm going to pick up on that point. Delia and Mowbray couldn't turn it around because they lost the dressing room. My fear is we're going the same way. That's my fear. If you get a collection of 4, 5, 6 players, that's an influence in that dressing room, or on that training pitch. An influence that couldn't even be broken by senior pros. Let's be honest, it's modern football now, Lawrence. And if somebody's making X amount of money and they want to go somewhere to double, treble or quadruple their wages, it doesn't matter to them if Scott Brown tells them, this is how you behave. So that, for me, the big issue is, Mowbray and Dyla left. That's because the players, famously in Dyla's case, lost faith in them. Is that happening here?
Well, I don't see it from Ayer's performances. I don't see it from Christie's performances. And those are two of the players that are rumoured to want away. I don't see that either those have down tools. I think those guys try their heart out every game. So
I'm a big champion of both players. Have been all season. Have been all season, particularly Christie. Sometimes I can't understand the flack that he gets. He's the type of player that we needed on Saturday.
Definitely. I can understand Christie to an extent. You're going, why just shoot Ryan? It's frustration, isn't it? But, a lot of those shots end up going in. He does take the high risk. But that's what Lenny wants from the players. He wants them to risk it. He wants them to take the shot. He wants them to make the difficult passes.
Who took a risk on Saturday? Tell me one occasion where somebody took a risk on Saturday.
Well, we didn't have players willing to take the risk, did we? Was it the pressure too much? Or going forward, our 5 main attacking threats weren't on the park. Or weren't fit. 2 of them come on and they were unfit. Griff had a chance. Playing on his shoulder, done what Griff did. Maybe, who else had a chance? Moy? Jeez, why is he not hitting the target square?
Yunus is an attacking threat as well, though, as is Frimpong, as is, or should be, Callum McGregor. You've seen the goals he scored in his career. He should be an attacking threat. And
where do we utilise, though, Callum? I think he sits a bit deep for us just now in the team, doesn't he?
He's sitting deep. And that was one of the issues on Saturday. And of course, Klamala's a centre forward, so he needs to be an attacking threat. So although we might have been missing 5, we still had attacking threats on the field. So, and a few on the bench.
Yep.
And that goes back to my issue with not making the changes. Now, we've been speaking for about 55 minutes, Lawrence. So let's go back to some of the people tuning in. Thank you for tuning in on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Michael Lee, you're tuning in on YouTube. Paul, really good management is not being too loyal to your players who are not playing good by not substituting them. Lenny makes his substitutions far too late. It's a criticism that we have had many times with Neil Lennon. I think this season after the game against Ferencvaros, we'd line up against Motherwell the exact same way, only when the change is made at half time, and that's unusual for Lenny. Do things change?
I would agree with Michael. I've said that. I think it's one of Lenny's faults. He's too loyal to players at times. Maybe he needs to get a bit of Ferguson about him. Think of the players Fergie cut at Man U to stay successful. Keane cut, Stam cut, Beckham cut. And perhaps Lenny needs to be more ruthless. Maybe Fergie could be so ruthless because he had better at his disposal, I don't know, but I think that is one of Lennon's faults. He's too loyal to players.
One thing about Ferguson, using him as an example, is if he fell out a player, if a player didn't want to play for him, he didn't.
He was gone.
He was gone.
And it was, there's three: Keane, Beckham, Stam. And I think Fergie in his book, it's only Stam he regrets, isn't it?
Yeah, many more would have gone the same way. My man says 67, I would play 4-3-3 with Frimpong, Duffy, Ayer, Taylor, Brown, Calmack, Turnbull, Christie, Moy and Ayeti. I think Turnbull deserves, I've got to say, I think Turnbull deserves a start on Thursday night.
It's where you get him in the team, isn't it? What formation you play. Turnbull's definitely industrious. He's looked good when we've seen him. He looked good with Motherwell. Do we throw him in against AC Milan? Maybe, if you go 4-3-3. I think the reason I was saying 4-4-2 and having Laxalt and Frimpong on the left and the right midfield is I think we're going to need to be extremely strong defensively. So I think Taylor behind Diego and Ayer behind Frimpong. That would be my team. I don't think it'll be Lenny's though. It's what I would do. And I would keep Welsh and Duffy in the centre. Well,
the big thing about Welsh is, and I did say this after the game, I actually did think he performed really well. He performed well under the circumstances. I think everybody's seen the image of him sitting in the stand, absolutely gutted at the fact that the team were so dismal in their performance. It would be a shame to drop him on Thursday night.
If we're playing St Mirren next, he wouldn't be dropped, would he? He'd have done enough to retain his place.
Mm-hmm.
So, do we change it because it's AC? Maybe. But certainly in my team, he would keep his position. I don't know if Lenny's going to do the same. He's got to understand. He'll know Welsh better than us, what he can expect from him. You also know who's closer to fitness and, what's the story with El Hamid and Beaton? How close are they?
Good point from Adam Harley, by the way. Ronnie Dyla didn't pick his backroom team. He picked some of them, obviously, with the science, etc. But obviously Collins wasn't chosen by Ronnie Dyla. So that's a good point, Adam.
And that was a manager that didn't really work out for?
Well, it didn't work out in respect to the fact that he had a 3-year contract and he was here for 2, but he kept the 9 in a row going, didn't he? He won the 2 leagues.
I liked Ronnie develop players, giving them the chance, but that was a manager that dressing room turned on. And as part of that, knowing that he wasn't trusted to pick his own backroom staff, I don't know.
The big thing about the players turning on him, obviously, John Collins has spoken about this 24-hour athlete. He spoke about it fairly recently and how he'll never manage in Scotland again because there's a culture within the game. Ronnie Dyla spoke about it and the players didn't buy into it. And it was senior pros that didn't buy into it. Dyla worked very, very well with younger players such as McGregor and Tierney.
Yep.
He did work well with the younger players.
But did Neil and Malkin not talk about getting players fit? Did the Lions not say that was something that was about Lisbon?
They reckon he was the fittest guy in the fittest team in Europe.
They could have played another 90 minutes, and the Italians that are used to heat were dying on their feet because Malk got them fit.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's a new phenomenon that players should be at peak fitness. It's down to an individual. Players have got to take responsibility, for what they can affect, and they can definitely affect their own fitness. And, if players going out there and goes, I don't want to be a 24-hour athlete, I don't want to be as fit as I can be, that's his decision. As much as
they'll be showing up for it, though. They'll be showing up eventually for it.
No, they'll be showing up for it, but that's that player's decision. As much as you want the manager to try and persuade him, it's like the revolution will not be televised. It happens in the player's head. It's,
I like that.
It's whether it's the decision in the player's head to go, I'm going to.
It's a spark. It's a revolution from within to make the changes. But again, what you did see with Dyla is a lot of the younger players, Lawrence, bought into it.
Well, look at Tierney.
And look where they are.
Look at McGregor.
Ayer.
Yeah,
Christie.
Yeah. They've done it.
Every one of them has gone on to better things.
Look at Johansson when he brought him in. He was a revelation for his fitness here. I know he went down to Fulham and he's been injured and that, but certainly he'd done it for Ronnie before he came here, and then Stefan Johansson was brilliant when he came over, wasn't he?
Van Dijk picked him out as being the best player at Celtic. Robert Ingram, we're talking about the team for Thursday night. Brown out, McGregor in his position, Turnbull in. This game could be the reason for Lenny's large number of debuts against Rangers. Big game experience where we can afford to drop 3 in the league. Well,
could be a shout. I mean, Brown's got a lot of experience, but will he have the legs to do the running that we're going to need to do against AC Milan? And I would say Aberdeen's the more important game to have Brown in for.
I think Lenny will play it safe on that one, and he'll play the captain against Milan.
Listen, dropping Scott Brown's or resting him, or whatever way you want to put it, is going to be a huge decision for Lenny and for Brown whenever that happens. We've got 2 huge games now. We've got to win the Aberdeen game. We know that's must win in the league. Would you say the Aberdeen game is more important than the Milan game?
No, what I would say is I'm looking at 2 of them, because in order to win the Aberdeen game you need a performance against Milan. If you go out there and it's another abject display as we've seen on Saturday, you're going to struggle against Aberdeen. We need to pick ourselves up now to win the game against Aberdeen.
Yep. And whether that's, would Turnbull and McGregor be able to have the industry in the centre midfield?
And Christie in there as well. Listen, Lawrence, it's always great to go toe to toe with you for a wee fencing match. Yep. Fantastic to have you in the studio as always, and obviously we will see you again next week. But thank you everybody for getting involved via Facebook, Twitter and on YouTube. But all that's left for me to say, Lawrence, is thank you again for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Thanks for having me.